to a certain extent, she might. That's right. Imagine from that comment, how can you think about it? I'd say I was very inspired. Okay, I'm saying I was stuck there for an hour and a half. And so not listen, the Baruch it's a mitzvah. We don't know what's a greater mitzvah, in the eyes of Hashem. But I found that it was very interesting. Anyway, we're up to the Mishnah Yudaladam and Aleph 10:59 from the top. Mishnah says, the basic case, we already learned one Mishnah. It's amazing. Shkolim, we did the same every 2-3 days. Now we've been going for 2 weeks and we still haven't finished the first parak. First parak is about as long as the whole of Shkolim. But basically, the first Mishnah tells us that we take the Kohen Gadol, we move him out of his house for 7 days. For 7 days he's out of his house. So on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol has to do the whole avodah. Everything has to be done by him. Since everything has to be done by him, so we want him to be in top shape, right? We want him to be ready to know how to do it all. So during that week, we train him in all the avodah. We make him do all the avodah to get him ready. It's like a preparation that he should know what to do on Yom Kippur. So the Mishnah says like this: Kol Shiva Sayamim, all those 7 days, he would sprinkle the blood. And here is a fascinating mitzvah, very interesting mitzvah. I'm saying it's logical. What would you have expected? What would you have expected the Mishnah to say? What's the first thing the Mishnah should say? Shechting. Shechita. On the Kippur, he was shechted. So why do we not practice the Shechita?
He's probably the way around. Go ahead.
And he doesn't do Zrika all year round?
It's different.
The order.
Someone else can do it.
No, you always do Shechita before Zrika. No, even on Shechita he does. No, you don't get time for Shechita. So in fact, later we're going to learn, it's one of the things that we read in the Pilot. Actually, the Torah mentions the Piyut. It's very interesting. The Piyut of Yom Kippur and Musaf, which, it comes there, so how it goes, I can't remember the words. Yeah, that's the middle of it, but how it starts, the beginning. It goes, it's very long. And there's Nusach Ashkenaz and Nusach Sfard. It was written by 2 different people, and they have a lot of halachic differences. It says that the Kohen Gadol would shecht, roiv simonim. Normally you'd shecht everything, but on the Kohen Yom Kippur, only shecht roiv simonim. And then he would stop, and another Kohen would continue the shechita, and he would catch the blood. Normally one Kohen shechts, another one catches the blood. It's very hard to shecht and catch the blood. When Yom Kippur, we want everything to be done by the Kohen Gadol. So he shechts roiv simonim and then catches the blood. So he doesn't do a normal shechita, he only does the minimum that he has to do, which is roiv. The rest of it, we let somebody else. In fact, it says kilsoy. It doesn't say shochta, you'll see when it comes to the Mishnah. So it's a shorter shechita. So therefore, we don't want him to practice during Shivas Imam because we don't want Shivas. Because if he practices, yes, then he has to full shechita. We don't want him to practice that. So therefore, we don't practice the shechita. Okay, interesting question. What's the Ketores? The Ketores, every day they would take some fire from which Mizbeach, the outside Mizbeach, and they would take some Ketores and he would pour it on the roof of the inside Mizbeach, just put a bit of coals on the Mizbeach, and then put some ashes, and then clear everything away a few hours later. So usually there was nothing on the Mizbeach. There was no blood, there was no korbanos. He would just do Ketores. That's what he did during those 7 days. One of the things you gain by learning Yoma is you get the best Masechta for understanding the avoid of the Beis Hamikdash as Yoma. So therefore, really, this is the opportunity to get a clarity. So this you have to get clarity. Okay. He was the one who was mesaken the candles. Every single day, they would clean out the candles. According to the Rambam, they would light the candles in the morning and at night. But in the morning, they would also have to clean the candles, take away the ashes, etc. And he would bring the head and the foot onto the fire. This is Yom Tov, and others say the head, the foot, and everything else. Only the head and the foot were the first two. So it's like saying he would bring the head, the foot, and all the rest later in the third parak. It actually says one Kohen bring the head, the next one would bring the foot on a normal day, not the Shvasui. And then the next Kohen would do the next foot, etc. So here, by just saying the head and the foot, it means and everything else. Others disagree that he only did the head and the foot. Okay. The rest of the year round, if you want to be makriv. He's entitled first to be the one to bring the korbanos, but and he's the first one. He's entitled to take whichever portion he wants. It means the Kohen Gadol can come in any day of the year, sees the nice chatos, shlomim, any korban which a Kohen is allowed to eat from, Normally, who gets to eat from the korban?
The person who's bringing it.
Right, the kohen who serves or anybody from his face up. The kohen gadol can come and says, "I want my portion," and he can take any portion he wants, and he can do any avodah that he wants. Okay. Says the Gemara like this: Man Tana, who's the Tana of our Mishnah? If you remember, one of the things they did all 7 days. What was the thing they did all 7 days? Is they would do the sprinkling of the Poa Aduma. In fact, there was something unique. What was unique about it? They used all the Poa Adumas that ever existed. So all 7 days, they would sprinkle the Poa Aduma. The Gemara is not going to go into quite the depth. The halach is everybody, a child comes home from school about it. The Poa Aduma was one of these unique korbanos. It created Tara and Tumah, which is one of the very strange things about the Poa Aduma. The Pasuk tells us, you become toy if you are Tomei, and Tomei if you are toy. Now, this kohen certainly did not need the sprinkling every single day. Why didn't he need the sprinkling every day? It's impossible. There's probably didn't need any of the sprinkling, but certainly most of the sprinkling was unnecessary. If most of the sprinkling was unnecessary, so what status does the kohen gadol have all 7 days? Tomei. If he's Tomei, how can he do any of the avodah? That was by Poa Aduma, and that was on the day that he burned the Poa Aduma. Here we're talking about Yom Kippur, they did not make him Tomei. By Yom Kippur, they did not make him Tomei. That way you're talking about is by Poa Aduma. But during those 7 days, he got sprinkled. When you get sprinkled, you become Tomei. Now, this is the question over here. Do you become Tomei when somebody sprinkles on your Poa Aduma water or not? If yes, our Mishnah doesn't work like that. That's the whole sugya. And the Gemara goes into detail, when does Poa Aduma make you Tomei? We all know when it makes you toys. If a person's a Tmei mace, that means he needs the Poa Aduma water, and he gets it on him, he becomes toy. A person who doesn't need it, when does he become Tomei? So that's the Gemara inside. Man, Tana Mav Chesed Lo Rabbi Akiva, Mishnah not like Rabbi Akiva. Why? Rabbi Akiva, he says, toy shenofla lov hazo tomosoi. Anything toy which falls on anything tomei hazo tomosoi. So every single day of the Shiva of those 7 days, he is actually tomei. So he can't do anything. He can't sprinkle the blood. He can't do maktikates. He can't do anything. The Tanya, we bring a Beis which discusses this machlokes. Vehizo hatoy ala tomei. It's pasuk Parshas Chukas. The pasuk says that the Torah person shall sprinkle on the tummy. The words al hatomei, you missed all the halachas of a kohen. Yeah, it's a bit woman here, no? Yeah, why is it so? Why nobody wants to open the windows? I was wondering. Do you mind? I'm saying if it's disturbance, you're fine. Again, the pasuk is hatoy al hatomei. The Torah person should sprinkle on the tummy. Those words al hatomei are spare. Who else are you going to sprinkle on? You have to sprinkle on somebody. You're not going to sprinkle on the Torah person. The pasuk says v'hizah hatoy al hatomei. The Torah shall sprinkle on the tummy. Obviously, you're going to sprinkle on the tummy, right? It's like the famous story of a person that puts up a sign, fresh fish sold here. So he says to him, fresh, you won't sell, oh, it's fish, you can smell it from miles away. Sold, you think give it away? Here, where do you think it's going to be? It's going to be the other place. So he takes the sign down. And then when he goes to the system, what do you do in the shop? So again, here's our Torah tummy. The Torah shall sprinkle on the tummy. Who else? Levi. Yeah. What?
I thought you were talking about the box.
No, I meant you can sit here.
We're going back.
So we're going to have to dash in this pasuk. Says the Gemara, how to dash it? Again, the Tanya is Torah Rabbi Akiva. If he is Torah, then he gets good. But if he sprinkles it on the toy, he becomes Tomei. That's the famous question that the Poa Aduma does. On a Tomei person makes him toy. On a toy person makes him Tomei. The pasuk is referring to a different drasha. It's referring to something which is mekabel tumah. The Gemara will explain in a minute. Mahi, because it's not. The halacha is that you're allowed to sprinkle many times. I once mentioned the Rash. Rash is one of the Shonim on Poro. So it's a fascinating thing, as we'd see. I once found it in the Sefer, different Sefer. How did they get toy before Pesach? We mentioned every asking toy. You walk down a certain road, and what happened was the Kohanim would stand on the balconies and they would sprinkle and sprinkle and sprinkle and sprinkle. And if you felt a drop falling on you, you then never went past that road again. So again, let's go through this drasha carefully. The halacha is you can keep sprinkling until you sprinkled something that did not need sprinkling. Once you sprinkled something that did not need sprinkling, The rest of what's left on the leaf, on the hyssop leaf, which you're sprinkling with, is called shirayim. Shirayim of something that never needed sprinkling cannot be used on a Torah person. So let's, for example, I've got, this is a hyssop leaf, herb. I dip it in the chattas water, and I sprinkle it on every person in this room, it's fine. I sprinkle it on the floor, and then I want to sprinkle it on somebody, it's no good. The more expensive.
The person's already tired.
But as long as he has the potential that he could need it, that's okay. If you sprinkle on something that can never need it, then it's no good. And it's not, it's come now, so you decide to sprinkle on the cow. Then the Yisroel, and then he went on the person. If they're still left on the hyssop, you can do it again, because a person deserves to get sprinkled, and he went on the person, so you can do it again. It's come now, a lot of Yisroel. You can't do it again, because since you sprinkled on an animal can never become a tmemis. In fact, all living animals are never tummy. Many people think that sheretz is tummy. It's not true. It's only once it's dead. There's no such thing as a living creature that is tummy, the exception being human beings. But all animals, even if anything can happen to them, as long as they're alive, they don't become tummy. So it says over here that I can't repeat it because he did it animal. So more explains. My time the fact that it says only because the tummy becomes tummy, the tummy becomes tummy. Chacham say we do it to give Rabbi Akiva from a kal v'chomer. What's the kal v'chomer? Im ala tomei Torah l'kol shekei. The Chacham say to Rabbi Akiva, what you're saying that makes no logic. What did Rabbi Akiva say? If you sprinkle on the Torah person, it makes him tummy, and the tummy person makes Torah. They say to Rabbi Akiva, what kind of logic is that? If you speak, if it makes a tummy person Torah, how can it make a Torah person tummy? Rabbi Akiva, I said I want to become wise. They became far away from me. Shlomo Melech said, I wanted to become wise. I never managed. I never understood it. The Rabbanon also agree that there's some illogicality to Bar Aduma, because we know the famous thing that Bar Aduma is something we don't understand. But they don't take it as far as Rabbi Akiva. And that is that if you do it on the Tomei, it makes him Toy. On the Toy, it makes him Tomei. They take it much less. They take it only as far as that if somebody touches the Paraduma water for no reason whatsoever, then he becomes tummy. If he does it for the purpose of sprinkling, he's not tummy. Only if you just, let's say, for example, you've got a cup of Paraduma water, you put your hand inside, then you become tummy. For sprinkling water, you don't become tummy. What do you want to say? Yeah, but for our Mishnah's sake, our Mishnah says the Kohen Gadol would work all 7 days. He got sprinkled all 7 days. How could he work? Again, let's go inside. The one who sprinkles and the one who gets sprinkled is toy. Well, it says clearly in the Torah, the one who sprinkles becomes tummy. When the Torah says the one who sprinkles, it doesn't mean the one who sprinkles. It means the one who is touches. There are 2 psukim in the Torah. One says, so there's 2 different psukim. One talks about sprinkling, one talks about touching. So you can't say the one who's sprinkling is touching. Void even worse than that. Mazah, when it comes to Mazah, the pasuk says, the pasuk says that he has to have his clothes washed. And there's a different halachas between Mazah and Negas. You can't possibly say that's what the pasuk means. Elomai Mazah, noise. Mazah means some do carries. Why does the Torah not just say the one who carries it? Why does the Torah say sprinkling? It needs to be the amount of azor, the amount that can be sprinkled. So let's go through very quickly according to the Rabbi Akiva, according to the Chachamim, the halachas. Let's start with the Chachamim. According to the Chachamim, the one who sprinkles Paraduma water, Tomei or Toy? Toy, very good. The one who sprinkles Paraduma Toy, Toy. The one who gets sprinkled on, what's his din? Toy always, regardless of whether he was originally Tomei becomes Toy, or Toy is who remains Toy according to the Chachamim. Now the Torah says 2 things. Mazah me'anida, but the gabe me'anida. According to the Chachamim, Mazah refers to somebody who carries me'anida. Negea is somebody just touches. If a person carries it, then he has to wash himself in the mikveh and all his clothes. If a person touches it, he just needs to wash himself, not his clothes. Why does the Torah use a strange notion of sprinkling when we know that it doesn't mean sprinkling means just touching? What's that to teach you? that you're not, you don't become tamei for carrying unless you carry the amount that is good enough to sprinkle, which is the proper amount. Says the Gemara, needs a measure, and there's a machlikas where the hazor requires a measure. Is there any measure to it? Says the Gemara, the person doesn't need a shear. You've got the cup, which you put that paraduma water inside. You've got the leaf, which you dip, and then you sprinkle it on the person. Regarding how much lands on the person, that perhaps doesn't need a shear. But the amount that has to be in the cup, everybody agrees there has to be a shear, because, as the Torah again says, leaves are very absorbent, and using a bunch of leaves to sprinkle with. If there isn't a proper amount in there, what will happen is we put the leaves in, there'll be nothing to sprinkle. Says the Gemara, Titnan, how much should there be enough to make the azor? Okay. So let's go very briefly what we've learned so far. Our Mishnah tells us, this Mishnah, that during those 7 days, the Kohen Gadol would work and make a big dosh every day. We want him to be in best training. So we made him do every bit of the avodah that's possible. Says the Gemara, that doesn't work. According to Rabbi Akiva, the halacha is that somebody who gets paraduma water on him, even if he was toy, becomes tummy. Answers the Gemara, our Mishnah is not like Rabbi Akiva, our Mishnah is like the Chachamim. And the Chachamim say that if a person gets sprinkled on, he does not become tummy. You only become tummy if you either touch or carry paraduma water for no reason whatsoever. But if you're doing it for the sake of being sprinkled or for sprinkling, either one does not become tummy. So our Mishnah is like the Chachamim. Abaya Oma says the Gemara, Abaya tells us no. Afilu Tema Rabbi Akiva, the Ovid avoda kule Yoma. Every single day he would work all day long. Ulepanya towards the evening, Madu Alei, they would sprinkle on him with Tovid, Vovidav Shemesh. We didn't need to sprinkle in the first thing in the morning. We would tell him to God that you work all day, and just before Nacht, just before Shkia, they would sprinkle on him, and then he would be Tomei, and they wait for Shemesh and he'd be Toy. So there are 2 ways to understand our Mishnah, which our Mishnah says the Kohen Gadol would work all day, even though it gets sprinkled. And it's going to go to the Chachamim that sprinkling does not make a person Tomei, or that they would sprinkle him just a few minutes before Shkia in order that he should be Tomei for most of the day. Now, a lot of Daf and Yoma discuss the order of the avodah. Those who have the opportunity say, Abaya Masada said that Abaya comes from a Gemara in Yoma. It's word for word taken from Gemara in Yoma. And there he goes through the whole Seder avodah, and the Gemara goes into the very great length again and again, many places. From our Mishnah, you've got a small inkling of the Seder avodah, because Mishnah says, Zerg is a dumb sprinkling the blood. Umakteres akteres brings the keteres, meiteres haneros. If I was to ask you what comes first, the keteres or the candles, what would you say? Keteres, because Mishnah says, makteres akteres or meiteres haneros. First keteres, then the nails. Now the question is that true? It says, well, makteres akteres, meiteres haneros, ama keteres bereisha, the keteres comes first, for all the nails. Or maybe I contradict you. Later we're going to have the lotteries. They would do lots of lotteries, and every time the Kohanim would disband, and they would come together again to make a new lottery. Anybody know why they would disband and come together again?
Shake them up.
You're right. The Gemara uses a slightly better lashon. They said they came nahalich berogesh. Coming to the house of Hashem should be with excitement. So like we want them like to gather again together, gather like the obviously bonim at the end when the people do the raffles. Boys get very excited. This is the thrill. So every few minutes a new raffle to make it more exciting. So the first one was they would say who would be zeicha in addition, that's the cleaning of the inside is beach So what do we see first? First the menorah, then the ketayos. That Mishnah is going like with Shimon Isha Mitzvah. That means like this. Many times you have a Masechta, which the Gemara says is going like one person. Actually, it says because we heard him stated once in that Masechta as being the author of that Mishnah. Many times people make a mistake. I've said this before. When people say who wrote the Mishnah, I say Rabbi Yehuda Steinberg, it's not the correct thing. He compiled it. There were many Mishnahs that came long before him. Esu Mekayman existed, perhaps even before the first place of English was created. It was built. Esu Mekayman is the oldest Mishnahs we have. Earlier, he compiled them. So Mishnahs Tamid, he compiled it according to the opinion of Shimon Isha Mitzvah. Now Masechta goes differently. Says the Gemara, no. We know it's not him. It's not. The halacha is, let's say this is very, very important. Whenever you do a korban, there are basically 3 kinds of sprinkling of the blood. There's the chatois, which you do. Here's the mizbeach. You see the mizbeach? We put blood on all 4 corners. Can you see all 4 corners? There's the korban oila. How do you do the korban oila? Shtayim shenaba. You're only sprinkling on 2 times. Once in this corner, once on that corner. Actually, to be exact, it's this corner and that corner. And then it would go, you'd throw it, and it would spread over the 2 corners on this side, spread over the 2 corners, you throw it, it would be 2, which is 4. Shtayim shenaba. And finally, there was like B'choy, Maisa, Pesach, which you only did 1 zvika, and you could choose any water you wanted as long as there was a certain amount. So that's 3 kinds. So the common talmud every day, what would you do to it? What would you say? What was the common talmud every day? What kind of common was it? It was an oila. So you did Shtayim shenaba. Comes on Rosh Hashanah mitzvah. The Gemara is going to discuss a greater length tomorrow, not today. He said you would do 1 place Shtayim shenaba, 1 which is 2, and then another place you would do it here and there. That means you start over here, and you throw it against the corner that it should splatter onto both sides. 1 throw, which should go on both sides, and then you would dab it over here and dab it over here. So it's actually 3 which is 4, 1 which is 2, and 2 which is 2. Now, who says that? Rosh Hashanah mitzvah. And he argues with the Mishnah and Talmud, because the Mishnah and Talmud says that you do Shtayim shenaba. So is the Mishnah and Talmud like Rosh Hashanah mitzvah? No. So the Gemara says, how can you say that Mishnah and Talmud is Rosh Hashanah mitzvah? It doesn't hold it. Let's look more inside. The Tanan, Bodo, can come from the northeast. Nosim is Zochet Tzephonis, do the northeast. Malvis Dreamus, this Malva Dreamus. Right? Metoli Allah, Mishana, he would change it for Tomit. Mizrachis Tzephonis, Nosim is Zochet Tzephonis. He would give Mizrachis Tzephonis. Malvavis Dreamus, Nosim Malvava, he would put on the west. Ba'achach Nosim Dreamus. So you see, Mishnah Mitzvah did not agree with that Mishnah and Tomit. Elam Avichnon Man Tanis said the Yoma, Rabbi Shimon Isha Mitzvah, who our Mishnah, again, not a contradiction. Our Mishnah says that what comes first, the Keteris, then the candles. The Mishnah in Talmud says candles, then the Keteris. First, we said that Shimon Isha Mitzvah was one who authored Talmud. Now we change it, we say no, Shimon Isha Mitzvah was one who authored Yoma. So Mishnah is in Yoma fit in Shimon Isha Mitzvah. Faith the Gemara, that doesn't work either. But Romi said Yoma, I said Yoma, there's none. Pais Hashem is the second lot, we Mishoichet, Mizerek, Midash Mizrach, Midash Samanoya, Male, Vomna Kevish. The second lottery was who shechted, who sprinkled, who cleaned the mizbeach, who cleaned the menorah, and who put the limbs on the mizbeach. Pais hashlishi chadoshim leketeres boi v'fisu. Those who are new for keteres should come and do a lottery. Why would you only use chadoshim leketeres? Because whoever did the keteres would get wealthy. So we wanted everybody to have the opportunity. Rashi brings it because. Make people wealthy. So only have people. They say once that Stipler got Sadikois many times. When I was born, my father wasn't sure they'd take me to the Stipler. And then the Shach was my son, they got the Stipler. And my father said, I said to my father, why was Shach so much older? He says, because in his days, the Shach was old. Like nowadays, the Shach lived much longer than the Stipler. So what happened was, he considered almost like a later to the disciples earlier. In his days, the Shach was the elder one. But then what happened was the disciples said, oh, nicer. The disciple was a Santa for hundreds, thousands of people. And he was poor like you cannot imagine. He struggled financially his whole life. I once told you this story that once he got kicked out of his flat. I was amazed by that story. An American kicked him out of his flat because he was a bit deaf. And somebody said to him, you've got this old deaf person staying in your flat. Who knows if you'll ever be able to kick him out? You better get out of him quick. Anyway. So the one said to him, what about the wealth of the, because Sandek also is the same as Bakateus. Yeah, it's the same. Because the Gemara says, yeah, that was the Shivas of the knees of 4, but the Gemara says that it's got, that's the one, I forget the possibly quotes. So he said to them, I've got a son like Chaim Kanievsky, that is my wealth. And therefore, you can see that the scholar worked. But so Chadosh Bekteres Boi V'Fisu. Omar Abai Kasha Kam Batovas Shtei Neros, Kam Batovas Chomesh Neros. It's not shver. There's 2 candles and 5 candles, and this is something which is going to come in again and again. And what happened was like this: there were 7 candles to the menorah. You used to clean 5, take a break, and then clean 2. Everybody agrees that you had to have a break in the middle of cleaning the candles. We're going to darshan much later from a pasuk. You clean some and then you stopped. The machleikus was only, what did you do during the break? This Mishnah holds that you did the keteris. So therefore, it's very good, our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that you did the keteris, then the candles, answer the keteris, and then the last candles. The Mishnah, a few fucking times, says you did the candles, then the keteris. It's the first candles, then the second. So there's no contradiction. The Mishnah I said no, there's no contradiction because there were two sets of candles. The keteris was in the middle. Says the Gemara, remember the keteris v'afsiklu, that the break in the middle was for the keteris. If you listen very carefully as you rattle off it says that you did the blood of the Talmud in between, not the keteris. Like we say, we say that the Gemara about liber double short. The Tanya lo yetiv esaderes v'akach yaktiv. You shouldn't finish all the neiros and then do keteris. And a yaktiv v'akach yetiv. The Rashi explains it means like this: do some of the candles, do the keteris, and then finish the candles. First, you finish all the candles, and then you do the keteris, and in the middle of the candles, you do the tamatomit. You do the blood of the tomit. My tamadam short. I'd like to get to this from for like 10 lines from the top, and then it's going to be a new topic, like slightly new topic. I'm just going to do that. I'm going to stop there. Start a bit earlier and finish. Okay, so we're going to just dash in a couple of psukim. That's all we're doing now. As to what was the exact order vis-a-vis the keteris and the candle, the cleaning of the menorah. We've got a couple of psukim. We have to reconcile them and explain them how it all works. So let's read this passage very carefully. My time of double short. In the morning, when he would clean the candles, he would then be maktir the keteris. So, if somebody would ask you, what comes first, cleaning the candles or doing the keteris? Based on this passage, what would you say? Candles. When he cleans the candles, then afterwards he should be maktir it. So it says that the keteris came after cleaning the candles. What does the Torah mean? Top the when the candles are being cleaned, te maktir keteris. That means yaktiveno means future tense. But it means like this: when the candles are cleaned, it should have already been mukta. And if you look at the pasuk very carefully, when the candles are being cleaned, yaktiveno, it should have been mukta. So what comes first? First the keteris, then the candles. Says the Chama, prove it to you. If you don't say that, in the afternoon, there's another pasuk. When Aaron lights the candles, he should light it. Now, the simple explanation would be first the keteris, then the candles. First the candles, first the candles, then the keteris. Are you going to tell me again the same argument? That first you light the candles and then you do the keteris. If you say yes, that's what we want. Well, Tanya, we have another drasha. Every single night you put enough oil that it should burn from night all the way to the morning. Means from night till morning. Anybody remember how much oil did they use? Half a look, 2 beches. Another drasha, and before we explain, it's not 2 drashas the same pasuk, it's 2 understandings. There's something important. The Torah says this. You can't learn 2 things from an extra word. But when the pasuk says something and the pasuk means a few things, you can learn both things. Me'erat boiker means make sure the candle is lit from night till morning. That's one halacha. But another thing it teaches you, me'erat boiker, is that this is the avodah which is allowed to be done from evening to the morning. And the pasuk says, oisoy. Let's read the pasuk carefully inside. Pasuk says, Yaroich oisoy. Aaron should prepare it. Aaron ubanav me'erat boiker. This is the thing that you're allowed to do from evening till morning, but nothing else. So the pasuk the Gemara says, Dava acham. This is the only thing which you're allowed to do in the evening. Meaning, there was nothing you did after the candle lighting. It was the last thing you ever did every day. So the Gemara says, what's the pasuk mean? You have to say that when the Torah says in the afternoon, light it and then light the ketera, and then bring the ketera. So it means when you're lighting it, the ketera should be burning. So too, in the beginning, it has to be, so in the morning, when it talks about cleaning the candles, it means while you're cleaning the candles, the ketera should have already been brought, we've been sacrificed. There it says the word oisoi, to limit, and because it limits it, the only way to explain it is by saying that it's already been brought up. But in the morning, it doesn't use the word oisoi, so you don't have that limitation. Let's just summarize very briefly. Our Mishnah tells us that God did all the avodas. We have 3 Mishnahs regarding what comes first, the keteros or the candles. In our Mishnah, it says first the keteros, then the candles. In the Mishnah in Talmud, it says first the candles, then the keteros. How did the Gemara reconcile that? Is by saying it's machlokes tanoim. One is the Shmuel Eish HaMitzpah, and Ushim Eish HaMitzpah, one is not. Our Mishnah is Ushim Eish HaMitzpah, that Mishnah is not. But then the Gemara asks a contradiction from Yoma to Yoma. And what the Gemara answers according to Rabbi is that there were 2 sets of candle lighting, 5 and 2. The 5 was done before the keteros, 2 was done after the keteros. Abba Shaul doesn't agree. He says the keteros was done after all 7. And what was done in between, anybody remember what was done between the 5 and the 2? Dama Tommy, the blood of the Korban Tommy. That's what's done in between. According to our Mishnah, it's the keteros that's done in between. Tesis is bothered that once we've answered that the keteros was done half before and after, the Gemara could have answered the Mishnah and Yoma and Talmud the same way. That the Mishnah and Talmud says the candle lighting comes before the keteros. The answer is because it's talking about the first 5, not the latter. Tesis asks it as a big, strong question. Why the Gemara never? When it came to the first time, we asked a contradiction. We answered this. But then later we asked a contradiction in Yoma. We said it depends if it's the 5 candles or the 2 candles, which is a bit of a question. Why didn't we use that answer originally? Okay, it takes to discuss it on the time for the Raisa. So now the Gemara brings the machlokes Abba Shaul and the Chachamim. Basically, the machlokes swings around when the Torah says that when you prepare the candles, it should be sacrificed. It does mean prepare the candles and then sacrifice it. That's how Abba Shaul says. Or when you're preparing the candles, it should already be sacrificed. But everybody agrees regarding the night that you first do the keteros and then you do the lighting. That's the only machlokes is in the morning. At night, the last thing you ever did was always light the candles. Okay, we're going to continue a little bit with this argument about how the order of the avodah was and how it did it through the Mikdash. Everybody, any questions?